Today on the Expect Miracles podcast, we have a very special guest, Dr. Huber. Dr. Huber is a naturopathic doctor out of Chesapeake, Virginia. She has an incredible life story where she was able to heal herself through multiple sclerosis, fibromyalgia, Hashimoto's disease. Please welcome Dr. Huber.
Hi, guys.
How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's an honor.
Thank you.
Dr. Huber, where are you from originally?
I'm from Roanoke, Virginia. So it's on the other side of the state from where I am now in the Blue Ridge Mountains. But I've lived here on the coast for a couple years.
It's beautiful down there.
Yep, 6 or 7 years. It is.
Yeah.
It is.
What were you into growing up as a kid?
Oh, interesting question.
Yeah.
You really want to know? Reptiles. I loved reptiles. Yeah, I wanted to be a herpetologist.
Wow.
I still kind of want to be one. So
never too late.
yeah, I know. It's one of those weird things. I was just obsessed with snakes and lizards and turtles and that sort of thing. But
And you were kind of telling me before that you were also into horses.
yes, still
Where did
am
that
very
come
much.
from? Yeah.
Well, I took riding lessons as a child and all throughout my teenage years. And I was so just infatuated with the equine and everything that they could bring to people's lives. I actually studied animal science in college. I have a bachelor's degree from Virginia Tech with the original intent to go to vet school, but then I became a little disenchanted from it and by it, and I just decided I'd rather breed them. And so I went into the breeding industry, and I raised Welsh ponies for a number of years until I became ill. So that was a big thing for me. Basically, since college, I've always had a little farm and a couple horses. I've got some pigs, and I still do now. I have a couple.
Nice. So Dr. Huber, let's dive into that a little bit. What was going on when you became ill? Was it you just kind of woke up one day and everything hit, or was it just kind of gradually getting worse and worse?
Oh, well, it's, with autoimmune diseases, they tend to just pile up on each other like dominoes, but mine were well spaced out. Back when I still lived in the mountains of Virginia, when I was first married and my children were very young, in fact, before my second son was born, this was in 2008, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. Had a super elevated TSH. It was like 192. And I know it's been well higher for people, but my endocrinologist.
For the listeners, what is Hashimoto's?
So it's hypothyroid. And it will, that particular disease, it'll go back and forth between hyper and hypo. But for me, I went hypo, stay there, like low thyroid function. When I was finally diagnosed, it was a very mysterious thing when it came about because I wasn't familiar with any kind of autoimmune disease or health related stuff at all at the time. So I had pain in both ankles, pain in both wrists and in the fingers of my joint, the joints of my fingers. And I had very dry mouth, dry eyes. My hair was falling out. I was very fatigued, but I had a newborn. So I thought,
keep it going.
I was like, maybe this is just postpartum. I really don't know. I didn't know what was going on for a period of time, but I became so tired that eventually I went to the doctor and they checked my thyroid and put me on Synthroid. So I was on that for 8 years. I'm no longer on it now.
How did that make you feel? The medication, did it help at first? It
helps very quickly.
Yeah.
It did. It did give me my life back. But, and I hadn't really looked into it, and I didn't feel any side effects from it the entire time I was on it, except for maybe my hair continued to fall out, and my body temperature it was consistently at like 97 degrees. Those two things didn't resolve until after I got off of the medication, healed my thyroid naturally and got it functioning to how it needed to on its own. Because, I get it. A lot of people, they get on this, they stay on it for their whole life, and their natural solutions to, like glandular products for the thyroid and that kind of thing. But you're still like relying on that for thyroid function. And I had a naturopath who told me, at one point, he said, if you still have your thyroid, you can heal it.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
He was right, because I did. And I haven't been on that drug for 3 years. But yeah, that was what happened initially. And then after we moved across the state here to the coast, I was married at the time. My husband got a job here, and we had mold in our home previously, which I didn't realize was a problem. I'm sure it was a
That
problem
causes
in
a
my
lot
house.
of health issues.
Yeah, I
Mold.
mean,
And
but
it goes undetected.
it did. It was an old house. It was built in 1910. Um, the air system, I'm sure it hadn't been cleaned out effectively. The family who'd been living there before was kind of yucky, and it just perpetuated while we were there. But we took all the same rugs and furniture and linens from that house to the new house. I was very stressed out by the move because it was a matter of moving all my animals, my farm, from that location to the new location. It took us a couple trips. That was very stressful. My marriage, there was a lot of stuff going on there, and just being a stay-at-home mom, being very depleted, it caught up to me. I wasn't eating well.
Mm-hmm.
I was eating McDonald's a lot.
Yeah.
And, I'm honest about it. I've always been tiny, and I had this strange logic of the mind that said, oh, because you're still tiny, you can keep eating it. Because I thought, if I was gaining weight, then that would be a sign it wasn't good for me. I mean, it was just this huge disconnect I had.
Right.
And meanwhile, my kids, I had them on like a very strict diet where we removed a lot of inflammatory foods, but I wasn't applying it to myself. It was
Right.
stress eating and that sort of thing. So yeah, the fibromyalgia came up first, just widespread pain throughout the body. It was on both sides of the body, all the points, and chronic fatigue.
Yeah.
So I couldn't make it through the day without falling asleep every afternoon, but I wasn't sleeping well at night.
Yep.
I had my menstrual cycle. I was having a period like every 2 weeks.
Really?
I was experiencing the PMS. It was awful, the pain, everything, but it was, instead of being once a month, it was twice a month. What else? Chronic constipation was a huge issue for me. I'd had that my whole life. And then the MS started, that was 2012 when I got that diagnosis. So that was just, everything that comes along with that. Neuropathy, and my legs, my feet, my hands, my arms, tingling, numbness, pain. Gosh, there's so many things. Massive heat sensitivity, brain fog. I had trouble, and it's interesting. I'm trying to speak about this a lot more because at the time I was hiding a lot of things. I didn't want people to realize how serious it had gotten. I was trying to overcompensate for stuff, and even after the diagnosis, I continued to do that. But I was having trouble writing and holding pens, turning doorknobs, speaking, like my tongue wasn't moving as well. And I was bumping into furniture all the time. And something very unusual, I don't know how aware you are of this. I mean, being a chiropractor, have seen patients who have this symptom, but I would think I was walking through a doorway, and it would look like I was going through the direct center of the doorway. I'd walk through it, and my body would slam into the side of it, because where my body was different from where I was actually seeing myself. And I was looking straight ahead. But spatially, I was really just dysregulated. I would go to walk up the stairs, and my foot looked like it was going to go right on top of the stair, and it would completely miss it. And I'd come down on my knees. And, the scariest part of all of it was that, driving, that I was driving too every day with that going on. I had trouble holding the steering wheel and keeping my feet on the pedals. So it was only a matter of time that if I'd stayed on that trajectory, I would have, ended up in a wheelchair, I think.
How was your overall mental state at this point?
I absolutely remember a moment, calling my husband on the phone, because I even tested positive for rheumatoid arthritis, but my son had mono, and we actually thought that was a false positive because there's, a correlation there. But I remember when that happened, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's like, how many diseases they had just piled on top of each other, and they were all ones that's like, oh, there's nothing you can do. You just take this med, and there's no cure. That's what you hear. And I was depressed, but I was also, in the back of my mind, I'd had this whole experience with my son's recovery already. I mean, he wasn't fully recovered at that time, but he'd made some major gains in his life. through dietary changes and nutritional supplementation and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually started applying that to myself. And it was it was funny. My first neurologist that I saw, she had, I love this story. She'd given me like a stack of pharmaceutical packets, and she'd said, it was like 9 things. She said, you need to choose one of these drugs to get on within, you know, you need to decide within the next 2 weeks, or you're going to be in a wheelchair. Like, that's what she told me. She said, I've seen it too many times. Your condition, it's accelerating too quickly. We need to get you on something. And that was the guidance. It wasn't like, this is the one that I think you know, just like choose it. And the way the pharmaceutical companies, they make everything look so bright and colorful, and they have these people that are just like experiencing this fantastic quality of life all over
on the commercials. Everybody's
you
happy.
get like, that's what the stuff they give you looks, and you get all this free stuff too. Like, I remember getting some pens and notepads and like a laptop cover. It was neoprene. It was awesome. And it had like, I can't even remember which drug it was, but like Tecfidera or something like that. It was just, oh, pick me and you can put me on your laptop. But I had asked her, I said, can you tell me something about each of these drugs so I can just know a little bit more about them? So she told me one thing about each one, and it was all like side effects and stuff like that. And the most sticking ones were, when you start this one, you have to be admitted into the hospital because it's not safe to start it at home. If you do this one, you can never have a child. You can't have another child. And, you know, I know that I'm probably not going to have another child in my life. But at the time I was like, well, wait a minute, even if I don't have a kid, that doesn't sound right to me. To do that to my body. So it was all stuff like that. And I didn't do it within the 2-month period. 2-week period like she wanted. I said I needed more time. When I did go back to her, I asked her about things like diet, and things, B12. Like, she'd put me on B12 and vitamin D, but I was like, is there some more stuff I can bring in here? Like, it feels like there's just more that we need to do. And she said, really, we just need to get you on one of these drugs. The diet stuff, she didn't want to talk to me about it because she said, my patients don't listen to any of that anyways. But it kind of felt like she just didn't know what to teach about, you know, around the foods.
No, absolutely.
So I didn't go back to her. I found a different neurologist, and she was amazing. She was much more open-minded to letting me kind of blaze this trail. I ended up finding out about detoxification. I started using like a detox foot bath. I don't know if you're familiar with those.
No, I'm not.
The ion cleanse. I'd gotten it for my kids, and I ended up using it on myself, and it took away my heat sensitivity and my brain fog, and it got my digestion.
The foot cleanse.
Yeah, because it activates your parasympathetic. So it took me out of fight or flight. I was using it every day.
How does that work? You just dip your feet in like a tub or something, and you pour it in and...
Well, I'll tell you right now, the Ion Cleanse by A Major Difference is the only one I have experience with. There are a lot of different brands out there. I know a lot of chiropractors who use the Ion Cleanse. They like it a lot for their practice. Yeah, your feet go in the water. You don't have to just use feet. Some people do their hands. There's some protocols with the hands. But what the machine is doing is it's a bath of water. It's just flooding it with trillions of ions that go back and forth between positive and negative polarity. It's creating basically these ions are attracted to toxins of the opposite charge. So we're looking at things like heavy metals, environmental toxicants, pesticides like the glyphosate is one, but also like mycotoxins with the mold, anybody with Lyme, endotoxins, and histamine. It's really good for pulling excess histamine out if you have a reaction to something. There's sweat glands on our feet. I know you know this, but I'm just saying to anybody listening. And there is excretion through those pores, but most of the detox is through the bladder and the bowels, possibly through the skin, that sort of thing. So our natural pathways of detoxification. And
that's amazing. That's my first time hearing about that. I didn't know, but there was a detox like that.
I got it at Autism One. That's a big autism conference in Chicago every year. I bought it after trying it at the booth, and the water turned black, sludge, massive bubbles were like pulsating off of the airway plates in there. And I thought, okay, I don't know what you're doing, because everything I just told you, I didn't know. Like, I'm funky and I need to get this at home. But so I ordered it. I got it that same week, but then I was like, there's an electrical current and water. Like, I didn't want to put my kids' feet in it.
Right.
And I just used it on myself for 2 to 3 month period. It was just me. I
Every
wasn't,
day?
I was using it 5 days a week, which is, as a practitioner, I don't recommend that now because
Yeah.
I had, yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
I was pushing hard. I was doing it for an hour
Hmm.
each time, usually in the evenings. I'd go and fall asleep after that. I would sleep fantastically.
Awesome.
Or fantastic. I don't know if I used correct grammar with that,
It
but
works.
yeah, I mean, it was the set. So it's the home model that I had. They call it the solo, and I was doing like 70% negative ions and then 30% positive ions. But I was actually would periodically switch the polarity on that. So it would be yeah, it would be positive ion dominant, which was good for me because of what I needed to excrete. I found out later with like the mold and stuff like that. Um, it
Did you
was
have
the
any heavy metal issues like mercury or
Well,
anything?
I know I must have, but I never checked. I
Gotcha.
really wish I'd done like a baseline to see what I was excreting before. And then
Hmm.
the thing about the ion cleanse or any detox that you do, you can kind of track that excretion throughout the protocol. You'll see it go way up. Like you'll see metals, if you're looking at like urine or
Hmm.
hair, you should see it go up for a period of time and then start to go back down. I wish I'd done that, but I
Yeah.
didn't. I didn't know what my soup was, so my toxic soup, that's what I call it. And yeah, that clued me into the fact that I was getting better because of it, and I wasn't doing anything else at the time new. So once I realized that detox was a component of healing,
Hmm.
um, and I was like, shame on those doctors for not telling me
Yeah.
that, but it's
Yeah.
okay because I found out. And then I went and I studied with Dr. Robert Morse, who is a naturopath down in Florida. I went and trained with him for some of his certifications in detoxification. So he works predominantly with herbs and foods
Mm.
to help cleanse the lymphatic system.
Which herbs did you start to introduce that you found pretty life changing?
Um, all domestic here in the US, pretty much. And it was a lot. So it was like kidney specific blends that I would alternate with lymphatic, because there's plants here on our planet that are just amazing. They are designed for systems of the body and organs and glands and things like that, which I think is awesome. I mean, there's plenty of other herbs for different things, but I love that the body parts have plants for them. So that's what I was doing. It was kidney formulas, lymphatic formulas, GI. For my GI tract, I was kind of working with some stuff to help pull old lymph out of the bowel walls too, because I had a lot of mucus pass out through that, and that helped with assimilation of nutrients because I was really inflamed and
Hmm.
probably wasn't utilizing a lot of the good foods that I was eating as well as I could have. But also stuff like liver support, um, absolutely endocrine support. I feel like that's not spoken about enough in detoxification, that we need to think about like our adrenal glands and
Hmm.
other areas. Pituitary is implicated a lot. Um,
For the adrenals, is that more just giving them a rest, like staying
yeah,
away from like caffeine and all of
yeah.
that?
Something that I think there needs to be more awareness around is that there are a lot of like holistic, natural adrenal formulas out there that are kind of stimulating for the adrenals, that they're designed to sort of pop them up a little bit and give you some energy. But that's not healing for those glands, especially for people with chronic fatigue who are just like on the floor, limp noodle.
Yeah.
You give them something like that and it might make them feel good for a second, and then they'll go back down and it'll be worse. So yeah, it's avoiding things like caffeine, avoiding those types of herbal products, and using more something for the adrenals that's going to help cleanse them. Because what I learned is that clearly with detoxification, the lymphatic system is like a massive priority, because that's what we want to create that flow within to help move those toxins out. And the reason being because lymphatic vessels are wrapped around all of the organs and glands. So when we have glands that aren't functioning as they should, like my little guy here that was like,
Yeah.
I don't want to work for you anymore. My thyroid has a little voice. Yeah, my parathyroids were weak too, wrapped in lymphatic, and it was congested. And adrenals are like that, up in the brain with the pineal gland. All those guys. So yeah, with the adrenals, when I want to heal them, I work with cleansing them, and also foods that aren't going to aggravate them. You know,
Hmm.
glandular system really likes berries, fruits, that kind
Nice.
of thing. Yeah.
So how far into it at this point did you start noticing like, oh wow, I'm kind of healing up here. I'm getting healthy, because you were completely at rock bottom. Like how
Yeah.
far into it did you kind of realize like, wow, I'm making a turnaround here?
I had I had some good stuff happening early on because right when I got that diagnosis, you know, that fuzzy period I told you where I was kind of I was depressed, but then I pulled myself out of it. I was doing the stuff like I'd done for my son. I did the paleo diet. There's been like many new diets that have come in. It's
Yeah.
like 2012. It feels like it wasn't that long ago, but yeah, I did, and that was based off of Dr. Terry Wall's Minding Your Mitochondria. I don't know if you've heard of her book.
Hmm.
Um, she's a physician who has or had MS. I don't know how she describes it now, but I speak about it in the past tense in my
Yeah.
circumstance. But yeah, so it was a paleo style of eating. I was getting grass-fed meats and doing vegetables. I did get better on that, but by better, I mean the neuropathy stopped. I was gaining some more control in my hands and my movements and my speech and things like that, but I plateaued.
Yeah.
So,
Which usually does happen in the healing process. You'll
yeah,
go up and then it will kind of just plateau for a little bit until it starts going up again.
yeah.
I have another question for you. How was your I have a lot of patients with MS, and they'll come in after the diagnosis and they look defeated.
Oh, yeah.
They think the
No,
world is over, and I you got to kind of pat them on the back like, hey, this is okay. You can actually heal from it. They don't think I don't know what
well, that's
the
because
doctors aren't telling.
doctors
Yeah,
aren't telling them that. Well, I
they're
didn't
just
know.
completely defeated. Like it's game over,
Well,
and it's
here's
so
how
sad. Yeah.
this is the visualization I had was, you know, you keep hearing, oh, you're going to be in a wheelchair.
Right.
You're not going to
Yeah.
be able to drive much longer. You're going to be in a diaper. Like your loved ones are going to be caring for you. I saw myself in like a tilt recline chair in the living room, just people taking care of me.
Hmm.
Um, that's like walking down a hallway towards a jail cell. That's
Yeah.
how it felt to me. And that's where I was going to be. And I've seen people in that place. It's dark, but my feeling on chronic disease and stuff, autoimmune, all this stuff, like it's a journey for the soul
Absolutely.
because I realized I started listening to that inner voice. I was like, you can get down a little bit, but you're not going to stay here
Yeah.
because you can get out of this because of what had happened with my son. People told me that wasn't
Right.
possible and he got better. Um, so yeah, I sympathize with them. And it's interesting. I'll have people contact me and they think if they do the exact same blueprint of what I did, that's what will help them. And that may not be the
Right.
case, you know,
Absolutely.
because I had to do a lot of like emotional work, like energy work on myself. I had to process out a lot of stuff that I'd been holding in myself residually, that wasn't just that physical side of
Hmm.
disease. And yeah, because detox is about those you know, physical toxins and then the
The
energetic
emotional
ones.
toxins are just as real.
Yeah,
Like when you're going through something like I had a brain injury, and
I
I
read about
was
that.
yeah, and like
Yeah.
I was 19 years old, and I was sitting across from a neurologist, kind of similar in your situation, and the guy was like, "Listen, I've seen this before. You're probably going to have to live with this for the rest of your life." This was like the first visit. And so they put me on seizure medication and antidepressants. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, I'm 19 years old. This can't be it. And you kind of, you hear some people getting better, but you also Google some things and you're like, that's scary too, because that's like
Google,
the
yeah, it can
worst
be your
case
best friend or
scenario.
it can be your enemy.
Absolutely.
It really
Yeah.
is. Um, yeah, you got to rise up. And that's the way this healing is because I've seen a lot of different types of people in my practice. Initially, it was a lot of the folks that just wanted me to take whatever prescription they were on and give them like an herbal equivalent to it. Like they didn't want to put any other effort into it because
Mm,
they were already associating that bottle with, okay, this has all the responsibility. I hear herbs are good. Let's do that instead. It was like, I don't want to do lifestyle changes or diet or anything like that.
right.
Um, that was kind of disheartening for a while when I was like, man, is this what my job is going to be like that I'm just doing?
Right.
But then I, you know, kind of worked through it. I realized they were teaching me something that there are people who are going to go their own way and it's not going to be where I think they need to go, and that's
Mhm.
okay. I don't judge anyone. I don't judge people for taking XYZ drug for whatever. But now I get people who are ready, like they come in the door and it's like they know what's ahead of them and it doesn't scare them.
Absolutely.
And sometimes that's because they've already tried a bunch of the Western medicine and they're fed up with it and they're not feeling good.
Yeah.
Other times it's because it's just something that's part of who they are, and it has been. It's like, I want to be eating the right things. I just want to make sure I'm doing that. I'm not one of those naturopaths that likes to do a whole lot of supplements.
Yeah.
I see that a lot in our
Yeah.
world, running labs and then just like filling potholes,
Right.
deficiencies with different things. I did that for myself initially, and that was kind of part of that plateau period too, because I had the Walls protocol, which I'm not bashing at all because it helped me a lot, but I ended up transitioning into a different way of eating after that. But I was carrying like 2 shopping bags full of supplements with me everywhere.
Right.
Like if I travel, it's hundreds of dollars worth every month that I was spending on things, and they were natural, but
Right.
they were not repaving the road. They were just like target shooting little things.
Absolutely.
And it was like, okay, so this is what I need to do to maintain my life, apparently, for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
That didn't really feel that far away from Western medicine.
Yeah.
So yeah, once again, Dr. Morris, he said, what are you doing? Like, a lot of what you've got here, you can get from certain foods.
Yeah.
You just need to cleanse the body so you can better assimilate things from your diet. It's like, that's one thing that you're not focusing enough on. So that's what I ended up doing. And now I I certainly don't take anything daily. I
Right.
just take it as I'm guided. Like, I have certain ones that I really love, various formulas that I'll keep in my kitchen. And then when I think, okay, that's coming up, I'm going to take that today because I thought about it,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So
Well, it's
very
also
different.
tough too when you start people on a lot of different things at once. It's tough to see what's working and
Oh
what's
yeah.
not.
Yeah.
So I'm a
I've,
huge fan of practitioners that believe like less is more, and you
mhm.
just kind of see what's working and what's not.
Well, I just don't think we're meant to live, dependent on all those things. I get it that it's toxic out there.
Hmm.
Even if you're eating really clean and drinking clean water, like, we still have to go outside and walk around, drive a car, that kind of stuff, and interact with the world and society. But I don't think we need all those things. I mean, I do believe some of them were helpful. Like, they gave me a boost for a period of time. To kind of get me on my feet, but detoxification was absolutely the element that came in, and it just like wiped the slate clean, gave me my life back. I also had chronic acne. My first breakout was when I was 11, and it
Hmm.
stopped at age 37. Like, so I don't have, but that
Wow.
whole time I was just like, my face was covered in it, and my chest and my back. It was just really hard for
What's
me.
good to detox acne with?
Um,
I mean,
Probably.
is that a blanket statement?
Well, I mean, it's the whole body. You got to look at the
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
body.
yeah.
But I found, for me, and this isn't going to be the case for everyone, but for me, it was a product that had activated charcoal and bentonite clay. It was a binder.
Mm,
It was a binder that I took. I actually took it for 2 years straight every night. And it had psyllium husk in there and some good gut herbs.
yep.
So for healing the tissue, but it pulled out a lot of mucus.
Yeah.
It was nasty, but I started to notice that it was helping. And then my skin would clear up a lot. And then if I happened to eat something I shouldn't have, I would just take some of that, and then it would like heal it immediately. I
Wow.
wouldn't even have to put anything on my skin. And I'd been on Accutane and Retin-A and a bunch of different topical, um, trying to think of if I took any other orals than the Accutane. I can't remember, but since I was a teenager, I'd been put so much stuff on my skin.
Hmm.
That kind of had to purge out for a period, but then the binder really helped.
Yeah.
Yeah, and African black soap. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but
I'm not.
that helps kind of detox the skin too.
Beautiful. Dr. Huber, when did you get into fasting?
Uh, that would be 2016.
And did
I
you,
learned about it, intermittent dry fasting.
yeah.
So, and I do that now every day.
What's the dry fasting part?
I dry fast between like 16, 18 hours a day. So I'll start after my last meal the night. And this wasn't like something I did it a whole lot initially in the first year, and then I kind of backed off from it. And only recently in the past few months as it started creeping back in, and it's just happening naturally.
Hmm.
Um, but then I'll just dry fast into the afternoon and break that fast with some like tea or water and some fruit, and then eat a salad and some vegetables later on.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I wanted to also touch on your son's autism too, and how you were able to help guide him through that, because that was the first initial journey for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
what was going on with that?
Let's see. So he's almost 12 now. He was diagnosed in 2010. And that was right before his third birthday when he got the diagnosis. He had started his regression around 18 months though. So what that means is that he lost what he had some words. He didn't have a whole lot of words. But by 18 months, those were starting to fade. The eye contact was fading away. Any kind of social interaction. He had a lot of gut stuff going on, chronic constipation. So by the time he was diagnosed, he was pooping. He was having like one bowel movement a week at the most, but it
Mm-hmm.
was usually even less than that. And he was holding his stool as well. So he was afraid to poop. And there's just like this huge backlog of stool up into his body. But and one thing that was really just so much of it is so surreal because I was not accustomed to being around young children until I had my children. I didn't have any experience with babies or toddlers or development and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
He never acknowledged his little brother for the first 6 months of his little brother's life.
Wow.
Never looked at him or touched him or noticed him. I think the first time he did notice him was when his little brother like had something in his hand that belonged to my older son and it made him angry and he
Yeah.
attacked him. And he would try to attack him quite a few times those first couple of years. But now they're best friends. You can't
Beautiful.
separate them.
Yeah.
But yeah, his diagnosis, we were really fortunate in that my cousin has two sons on the spectrum as well. They're older, they're teenagers, and she had experience with biomedical intervention, as we refer to it. So she and her husband specialize in it. They were able to guide me. They got me in with a really good doctor in Lynchburg,
Mm-hmm.
Virginia. Dr. Elizabeth Mumper is her name. And we did the gluten-free, dairy-free diet and got him on some fiber supplementation. He actually started pooping and his language came back after that.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Really?
very quick, but and that was great. It was echolalia and scripting. So he was repeating back to us things that we would say, or from his favorite show, Thomas the Train, or Thomas and
Mm-hmm.
Friends, I guess he would correct me. But, you know, I don't know now if he would. He doesn't like that show anymore. But books, he would memorize phrase. He only had to hear it or see it once. And
Mm.
then he would use that to communicate back to us things. So there was meaning there. But he was in speech therapy. He was in ABA therapy. We did some work around, he had high levels of Clostridia, sometimes yeast, like his gut, there was a lot of imbalance in the gut. So we worked on that. Some of it was with pharmaceuticals, which I wish we hadn't done, but you know, there's a
Yeah.
learning curve to
You
this.
gotta, trial and error. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a lot of die off. He was really uncomfortable. Like I remember we were using Flagyl at one point. I don't know if you're familiar with Flagyl. It's just
No.
disgusting. Tastes disgusting. He was on that and it just made him miserable. But he just like powered through all of it. He was able to go into this kindergarten class at a private school, and he's still at that same school. It's just a regular private school. He mainstreamed into that, and that was after a couple of years of having some therapists help him in the preschool environment and that kind of thing. But speech came back, everything just nice and flowing. Started engaging with other kids. He's got good friends now. Plays sports, plays instruments. He's taught himself how to play the guitar and the piano and
Beautiful.
makes, honor roll. He's sweet and
Yeah.
loving, no more aggression. And a
Yeah.
lot of that, we did the detox and the herbs and we did some energy work with the Reiki. That was more recently. That was probably after I studied with or definitely after I was with Dr. Morse. I came
Mm-hmm.
home and I got him on that protocol and that's where we saw the shift in his aggression.
Mm.
So now he's just doing phenomenally.
So it's definitely crucial to start healing the gut with
Oh yeah,
autism. Yeah.
yeah.
And
My
detox.
The things with autism is, gut is really important. Underlying pathogens are usually present. You don't want to just go right after them though. And what I'm speaking of are like viruses and bacterial, fungal overgrowth, sometimes parasites, but also things like the mold the toxic mold. There are different ways to test your home and your child to see what they've got going on. And EMF, I really like to make that known that EMF is one thing that you should remediate as much as you can, because our kids are like sponges
Mm-hmm.
for that radiation, that frequency. You know, we don't see it, so we think we're all
Yeah.
it's a huge factor. And you know, I don't know what it's like for you, but you can probably relate. I see a lot of people with anxiety,
Mm.
a lot of
Oh, all the
people with
time.
constipation. They're just, I mean, and I feel like the anxiety is absolutely affected by all this stuff we got going on around
Well,
us.
I had one this Dr. Jacoby, who's a regenerative medicine specialist, and he touched on the electromagnetic field and everything that's going on today. And he says I can do an entire episode on that because
Yeah.
it's really and it's not really, it's known but not really known to many, the effects it's having on our daily lives.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's affecting it at the cellular level. And I know that's the reason why mold is so toxic now, is because of what the EMF is doing to the cells, and it's allowing those toxins better access to us. I mean, you look at what it does to a woman with her eggs, and it's radiating her eggs, and then it affects like multiple generations beyond that, just
Wow.
by like holding those devices. And it's not just our handheld devices and our wireless. I mean, it's interestingly, I've learned more about how like hybrid cars, electric cars emit a lot of radiation, like the EMF, and a lot of our appliances that are plugged in, anything that has a motor. So, you know, I have air purifiers in my home, and I found out that they put out a lot of EMF. It's like, man,
Really?
I can't win anything here.
Yeah.
Ceiling fans, a lot of the stuff we have in the kitchen, absolutely. Like,
Are those salt lamps good at repelling EMF, or is there another thing that you can put in your house that can kind of help repel?
I have in my house, I have a lot. My house is like a shrine.
Crystals.
I'm just gonna go ahead. Oh yeah, you read my mind.
Yeah.
It's crystals in every room. They all have their own place. I've got a lot of plants and salt lamps. But yeah, we have pieces. We have things on our devices that harmonize the frequency. You know, it's a very chaotic vibration that is put out, and it helps harmonize that. So it's almost like beneficial. And there's different little things you can clip on to your various appliances, stuff you can put underneath your mattress. I have grounding mats, and
I hear they're
yeah,
great.
I sleep
Grounding
a lot.
mats, grounding blankets.
Yeah, earthing.com has all kinds of stuff for your bed. We just took the basic grounding kit, which is like technically a mat you're supposed to put under your feet while you're on the computer. I've always had it under my fitted sheet on my bed, and everybody sleeps better that way. But I did hear someone recently speak about the fact that when you are grounding like that, other frequencies will use you as a conduit to come through that. And I don't know how bad that is. I mean,
sound good.
I'm like, okay, so you're an antenna, but technically it's just like going through you, right? So it's not staying, static within us. I don't know. But it's absolutely something that I think if it's not addressed, like everything else you're trying to do, that's fighting it, that needs to be remediated in the home as much as possible. Like there are different kits you can buy to put around the house, things that you can put around the house, but it's definitely something to be mindful of. I know people who turn on, like I have one woman I'm working with, she shuts the whole circuit breakers off every night before they go to bed. There's nothing on. Wow. She said she knew that it had been turned on. Her son had turned it on one night to turn on the internet, and she knew because the smoke alarm light came on or something like that. But I guess they would run off of a battery otherwise when I don't know. Yeah. But yeah.
That's interesting. And there was one other thing I wanted to ask you about Reiki, because I've had Reiki people on here before, and a lot of people can view that as a little woo-woo-y and not scientifically beneficial for health related issues. And I've had it done to me so many times, and I feel so much better after a Reiki treatment. I just don't have any idea what you guys do. I know for a fact it works. I love it, but I can't explain it to people. I was like, I have no idea. I just feel great.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'd talk about do a whole show on that, but I'll try and taper it down a little bit. Reiki is life force energy, so we all already have access to it. you're already drawing it through the body. Now, any living thing is, so it's not just humans, but also animals and plants, any living thing. That's just like a divine energy that we're able to pull from source. And what that means, you know, we don't need to get into that because I don't even know if I can answer it. But
Right. Yeah.
basically Reiki, when someone, and there's 3 levels to Reiki, but you can just do the first level and still be like a Reiki practitioner. You're using the energy. You can work on other people. That's fine. The other 2 levels are just the second ones to help amplify it and teach you how to use it more strongly. And then the third is to teach you how to become a teacher and do it for others, or attune them. But the attunement process in a Reiki class, it's done for each one. It's kind of like a sacred ceremony where we create more of an antenna through the physical, through the body, so you're able to draw it down much more effectively. It's very strong. And then you know, some people will feel it without ever taking a class. They'll feel that sensation, and I don't know if you felt it off of the Reiki therapists who've worked on you, but it's a heat that comes out of the hands. It feels like if you had your arm out in the sun. That's what it feels. It comes out of our hands. It can come out of the feet. I mean, really, you want to talk about woo, but I try not to use that anymore because I used to always apologize for myself. I used to say, I'm going to get woo now. I'm going to get woo. Get ready. I hope you're okay. Now I'm like, my higher self is saying, stop saying that. Stop apologizing. So you can direct it with the eyes, through the breath, and through the center, like your belly button. So you can project it. And that takes like a whole, what Reiki does is when you learn it, you do learn how to discern energies better. I mean, naturally we can do that, but you know, that feeling of good versus bad, truth versus lie, good, evil. Yeah. So those things like that, we can better feel that and sense it, because those aren't things we're able to see as well, but the Reiki helps bring that in. It's one way, I'm trying to think of like a scientific way to describe it. I mean, I do know that it's working with polarity. So if there's like toxins or inflammation or pain, that's putting out like one charge, and the Reiki has the opposite. So it's a very intelligent energy. You really can't tell it, you know, you don't tell it what to do. It does it. It's almost like a living thing. So you apply it either directly, the person, I don't know how you've had it done on you, but it's either directly hands-on or it's in the auric field. So
I've had both. I've had people stand a little distance away and do it. I've had hands-on.
I mean, different. I like both because they feel very different to me. They're both effective. When I have people, so I do it here, I have people come in for like an hour-long session. I work on them. I do a lot of work in the auric field almost. It's very strange how that's like predominantly what I do. But if someone
do you
has
see
a lot
auras
of pain,
as well, like on people? Yeah.
It's
I was reading the medical median book and all that stuff, and it's very real.
I see a lot of stuff that I see. I feel more or sense more, or I'm like, it's like something will kind of tell me, all right, heart chakra, work over that. So we do a lot of work over the chakras. At any point they can be imbalanced. I mean, it's just kind of a natural day-to-day thing that you'll have certain chakras that aren't spinning as well as they should. So Reiki can help redirect them and heal them. And you work through like the field, the auric field of the body, and find blockages, and you can kind of move that out. There's so many things that you can do through energy work. Reiki, though, really is best for relaxation. It brings that sense of peacefulness, clarity of mind. It can be very grounding, but it's also good for the pain and inflammation.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So I hope that.
No, it's perfect.
Okay.
And are the tuning forks you use, is that in line with the Reiki, or is that?
Yeah, I've just started working with the tuning forks. I have a lot. Right now, the ones I have here are all chakra specific, and I just use the ones that I'm guided to. I usually use them one at a time, and they can be either kind of used just in the field, or the person hears it, or you can actually hold the fork over certain parts of the body, which you may be interested in as a chiropractor. Like there's certain, there's a really good book on Amazon right now. It's called like Tuning the Human Biofield or something like that. I mean, it's fantastic.
Really?
I recommend it for anyone interested in frequency healing, but there's different ways you can put the forks places to work through different meridians and clear blockages and help people. So I'll do that if I'm guided. And
beautiful.
Yep.
I love it. So Dr. Huber, those for joining us a little late here, what do most people come for you as a naturopathic doctor? and what do you like to heal, and what do most people seek you out for?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the patterns, I'm trying to think. So I see all kinds of things. The most common ones, like I said, are anxiety, constipation. People aren't sleeping well. The autism, I see a lot of kids with autism because I do remote work over something like Skype. So typically I use homeopathic medicine or the herbals for that. I'll kind of do like a detox protocol, and we'll work with some of the inflammation, any pathogens, that kind of thing. More so now I'm seeing the autoimmune, and that's because I've been publicly talking about it a lot more. So people are
Absolutely.
finding me. I did like one YouTube video and all these
Yeah.
people found me. And so I've had a lot there, and that's just all kinds of things, but more cancer now too.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those folks are at the same time they're doing the chemotherapy and all of that. And I'm fine with that. Like, I understand that, and I don't try and dissuade them from that. But then I'll also have people who don't want to have anything to do with that.
Right.
They just want to go natural. And so that's when we work with the fasting and alkaline diet and the detoxification, the mind body work and processing emotions. Because all diseases like this, but cancer, absolutely, there's blocked stored emotions in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I do some education around enemas too, if the person's open to that, because I feel like enemas can be beneficial. I see all kinds.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And Dr. Huber, where can people find you online, social media, all that stuff, if
Yep.
they want to schedule an appointment with you?
Well, the best way to schedule an appointment is to go to my website. It's www.ascalonnaturopathic.com. I don't know, will we put it on the...
Yeah, we'll put it in the
Okay.
show notes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's it's a doozy. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'd spell it. I'm used to spelling it, and the fact that I can do that now is, like, tribute to the fact that I've healed myself. I wouldn't have been able to spell all of that when I was in the bowels of my illness. But I'm also on Facebook. Ascalon Naturopathic is on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I am on Pinterest. So I've got lots of Pinterest boards. Personally, I have like a personal Twitter account that sometimes I put like weird spiritual stuff on there.
Nice.
Like following it. So yeah, you can definitely find me online.
Beautiful.
And I have a blog too, a new blog on my website that I've just started.
Perfect. And at the end of every show, I like to ask all my guests, what is one piece of advice that has really resonated with you over the years that you would like to gift the audience? Could be absolutely anything.
That I mean, honestly, I do not believe that healing from disease is impossible. Any disease, like, it doesn't matter the name. I mean, I feel like, and by that I mean, we can strive for better quality of life. Like, it may not be full cure, but if you've only been using that outlet of Western medicine and you're gravitating more into the holistic, like, I feel like that can help. I mean, I just hate to see people locked in place where they think they can't do anything with their diagnosis, because there's always something.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if that resonates.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed this episode. You are a wealth of knowledge on health and healing. And I hope people listen to this and seek you out and become a patient, because you are awesome.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So thank you for coming on. And I'd love to have you back on anytime.
Yeah. I would love that too.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Huber.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Yes, you too.